we're going to go ahead and transition to Dr. Jeff Andersen, our crack meteorologist and climatologist. And Jeff, I think a lot of people are happy today that we're anticipating rain yesterday, and gal, it really came through.
Well, you're looking at one of those in the happy category as well here this morning. Widespread rain. We did unfortunately have some severe weather to go along with this, but again, I think most people would 9 times out of 10 take the water over some of the wind and so forth. I'll talk more about that in a moment. I'd also like to follow up on Kim's presentation there in the chat. Some of the great information that Kim gave. There's a new source of information from the Midwestern Regional Climate Center at Purdue, and I put the URL for that in the chat, which gives some additional information on when that date of first freezing temperatures, and it's actually, there's a number of thresholds besides 32 degrees, 28. There's a number of them you can look at, and it's down to county resolution, and it's quite detailed, and there's also graphical information. And the last thing I have to say about that is that it's a moving target, because the date of the first freezing temperatures in the fall, or first 28, same thing, has come earlier with time. In some cases more than a week and a half than it was just a couple decades ago. So what we remember, what we think, may no longer be the case. Again, that date that this is occurring is going to be earlier than it was before. So anyway, have a look at that. It's a brand new resource and a great source of information. You can also look at this for freezing temperatures in the spring as well. That's of interest. So let's shift gears and look at yesterday. A very, very active weather day across the Midwest. And these are storm reports here in blue and black. Fortunately, no tornadoes reported yesterday, but this is what the National Weather Service's Storm Prediction Center has collected so far for the last 24 hours. These are major reports of significant damage at one place or other. Most of those blue markers in Michigan are the result of wind damage. There were several reports of large hail. And I have to say, personally, I was on the Amtrak, the train back from Chicago back to East Lansing last night, and the train I was on, it ran into a tree on the track that had fallen. The wind had blown down across the track, and we had to stop and were delayed. This was down in Van Buren County here last evening. And it ended up in shattering the windshield of the locomotive. But again, a result of, and it didn't show up in the storm report. I was a little disappointed, but you can see there were a number of reports here. Fortunately, most of those were just trees down. There's still power outages, though, reported in some parts of the state. But as we talked about at the very, very beginning, I think clearly the most important impact of this for us and for our discussion is widespread rain, and we had, especially in areas that had been missed by earlier rainfall. So widespread 1/2 to 1 inch or greater total. Some spots picked up more than 2 inches. I had 114 at my place here in Hazlet, and on campus, it was 1/2 to 1 inch, a little bit less, but it was widespread, and there's more to come, at least for some parts of the state here, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. Looking at the last week, a very, very a very pleasant, some cases cooler than normal and dry week for most areas. On the left-hand side here, you can see mean temperatures at or a degree or 2 below normal, so pretty close to where they should be, but a little cooler. It was, again, for most purpose, it was a gorgeous weather for most of the week, and depending on location, drier than normal. Although in the last couple days we did pick up significant rainfall in the northern part of the state. You can see, especially across upper Michigan and portions of northern lower, very, very helpful, very, very beneficial in areas, certainly in the northern lower where they really needed rain. They did pick up some moisture here over the last couple days. Now, this is important to note here. This only goes through yesterday morning. So all of the rain we saw over the last 12 to 18 hours is not there. This is a preliminary radar image. It's a little hard to tell what's what here. Lake Michigan is right here where my cursor is, but this is looking generally at, this is the radar site from Grand Rapids, which is right in the middle of the circle here. But widespread, uniform, 1/2 to 1 inch or more rainfall for a vast majority of at least south central and southeastern lower Michigan. There were some spots that were missed, but and this includes areas that were missed earlier. And you can see it complements in terms of the area that was previously dry down here, the southern Michigan very well. So things are really have turned a corner in many, and there has been additional rainfall earlier than this. So we've done better than at least the forecast had suggested earlier in terms of water. I think that's the bottom line. This is the soil moisture percentile for the top 3 feet or so of the profile. You can still see some dark browns here across portions of southeastern lower Michigan, but that's going to be in the, well, it will be lower. And there's no question that the percentiles here have increased during the past week, so it's not as ominous or as concerning as it was in the last couple of weeks. So we're moving in the right direction here, and again with the widespread nature of last night's rainfall, that should really help move things along, especially our annual crops, our corn now at the reproductive, or we're moving into early fill, and our soybean crop really should benefit from this water given the timing of that. Our degree day totals for the season, still the same pattern, some surpluses in the far southern part of the state and some minor deficits in the north. So that not much change there. Well, lots still to talk about on the weather map here this morning. You can see that I ran out of space. And I apologize for all of the colors and so forth in here, but there's a lot going on currently over the Midwest here, and you can see this from the satellite picture here clearly with the clouds. You can see it with the precipitation, the radar time lapse, and there's a little cell that Kim is looking at currently with a thunder shower. That is going to set the stage, at least in the southeastern part of the state, with this frontal boundary, which is just very slowly moving to the east and south. It's not making much progress. Ahead of it, we've still got the soupy air mass, 70-degree dew points, and that's why I put our dew point temperature, something we don't look at very often here in terms of a weather map in the lower right. But note here that over lots of southern and southeastern lower Michigan, we have dew points at 70 degrees. We don't see that too often in Michigan. That very humid conditions, and that's one of the reasons why we saw so much in the way of precipitation last evening. Note though that as you go north and west, back of the front, that skies have cleared and we've definitely got drier air. So depending on where you are today, very different conditions for much of the northern and even the central part of the state. We'll see either mostly fair conditions or clearing and less humid, a little bit cooler, but then still to the south and east of the front, more of the same. Not as hot as yesterday though, and we will see showers and thunderstorms likely come back. There'll be another invigoration of convection this afternoon as things heat up. High temperatures in the southeast still making it into the mid and upper 80s, and so with that, those 70-degree dew points, it's going to be another uncomfortable day. Not as bad though as the case yesterday, but we are looking for another round of showers and thunderstorms in the southeast. Primarily, I think right now, south and east of I-69 is where we'll see most of the activity, and we could see significant rainfall there, but it won't be nearly as organized and in some cases violent as what we saw last night. It should be more of the garden variety, but many areas will pick up another quarter to half an inch or more. If you're under the right cloud, there could be significantly more than that, especially southeast. Here's the weather map by tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. And you can see that system is just barely pushed to the south and east of Michigan. Again, it's not going anywhere fast. High pressure's in behind it. That should lead to, again, mostly fair, dry, a little bit cooler and less humid conditions across most of the state. There will be the chance for some isolated showers in the far southeastern corner. But other than that, again, fair and dry conditions expected tomorrow. And then into Saturday, more of the same. However, you can see another weather system here off to our west. We will see a noticeable increase in air temperatures by Saturday. Again, we'll be back up into the 80s, probably mid and upper 80s. The same case on Sunday. And so after today and early tomorrow for the southeastern part of the state, next chance for significant precip coming probably during the afternoon on Sunday, and then continuing into Monday for most of the state. And right now, I think it's looking like a fairly, it won't be probably as widespread as what we saw last night, but it will be at least 50-50 odds, better than that probably. And I think right now the guidance suggests that the best coverage with this will be across northern parts of the state here late, especially overnight Sunday into early Monday. So that's the next chance. After that, important to note, we will see a little bit of a troughing feature take shape over the Great Lakes region. That'll bring some Canadian origin air. You can see the hints of that here, probably in the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday timeframe. So we will be looking at a period like we saw last week of pretty comfortable conditions, maybe some high temperatures only reaching the upper 70s, so maybe a degree or two below normal by the middle of next week. So again, lots of back and forth here, and it reflects that upper air pattern that we've had over much of the Midwest this growing season. Precip totals looking like a fairly active week. You can see most spots here at least 3/4 of an inch to an inch, some cases more than that in the northern part of the state. So most areas at least probably normal rainfall here for the week. A lot of this coming well both in the southeast here today and then on Monday or on Sunday and Monday of this upcoming weekend, early next week. Potential evapotranspiration rates, again, the reference values, because of that cooler weather that's anticipated next week, are a little bit below normal for this time of the year. Most of our weekly totals here running from about 1.1 to 1.3 inches. So again, and most of our crops, our annual crops, were at or near peak values for the growing season and given the canopies, et cetera. But the atmospheric demand here predicted to be just a little bit below what it is normally here this time of the year. Finally, moving here to the medium range, there are some changes here I think that are important. And I'll start by saying both the 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks, they're almost identical. And that's it's not really uncommon, but they're very, very, very similar. So we only need to show one of those here. But I want to bring your attention to this jet stream map here. We again can't overemphasize the importance of this in terms of looking at these longer term patterns, or these week to week type time frame. And you can see in this pattern for the 9th through the 13th, that big ridge, which has just been, it has been the dominant weather feature for the lower 48 states here for the last several weeks. And it's what's associated with the heat dome and all. I've heard a statistic here this morning, 100 million people today impacted by 100 Fahrenheit or better high temperatures, and which is just something we don't see very often. But that feature is what is causing or is directly related to this heat. Michigan has been on the northeastern periphery or fringe of that for much of the summer, and so as a result, and that's usually a pretty good thing. We've had sort of northwesterly flow or westerly flow aloft, but we've been spared from a lot of the real heat and humidity, and we've had incursions of Canadian air on occasion. We'll see again that here next week, but the location of that in our forecast is just so critical. And you can also see here, besides the ridge, you can see a troughing feature over eastern portions of the U.S. That's also really important because that's what brings the cooler air down from higher latitudes into the upper Midwest. And the exact location of that, 100 or 200 miles in one direction, can make a huge difference. And so our outlooks last week when we talked, we were really pushing towards that ridge being closer, the axis of that being further east, and looking at a very warm, dry type of outlook. That's certainly still the outlook for the month of August. All of the outlooks were very consistent. Well, in the last week, we have seen hints that perhaps that ridge may stay further west than had been earlier indicated. The trough a little bit closer, and because of that, not quite as much a uniform direction towards warm and dry, even though that's what we can see here in the most recent 6 to 10 day outlook for temperature. But you can see Michigan, there's an area here of near normal. That is what that trough, the influence of that trough there, bringing some cooler air down. And so it's going to be tricky. We'll have probably not as much accuracy, not as much confidence in this outlook as we might want, but there will be some cooler air mixed there. Still, though, calling for below normal precipitation. Now, that would be more the case, especially as we move towards the latter part of next week into the following week, again, second week of August and maybe beyond. But I think the key feature here, key factor take home, is that the outlooks and the guidance is less. It's less uniform in pointing at warm and dry than it was a week ago. So I think that's a good thing, given the water and the rainfall that we've had here over the last several days and week. Things looking much better for many people than they did a week ago. And I think that's really the bottom line. We really, that rainfall last night should really make a difference in many areas, and hopefully there's a little bit more here coming today. But the outlook is less, as I say, less dominant towards the warm and dry outlook. So summarizing here and trying to wrap things up here, depending on where you are today, a relatively nice day and a little cooler and less humid, but in the southeast we're still stuck in the warmth and humidity, with more showers and thunderstorms likely there. Friday and Saturday will be generally fair and dry and warmer, back up, becoming again warm and muggy once again, and then the next chance for precip likely on Sunday and into Monday, followed by some cooler weather next week. And as we just talked about, still edging towards a warmer and drier than normal scenario here into the middle of August. So I'll stop there with the weather and move on to introduce next week's virtual breakfast speaker, and that's Dr. Ehsan Ghani from Department of Biosystems and Ag Engineering. And Ehsan will be with us to talk about water management and excess water in a changing climate. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully you will too. And I'll stop there and turn it back to Phil.